Hi everyone, I'm Nicolas Rosado, a passionate software engineer, and today I'm really excited to start the third episode of Craftcode podcast, a podcast about tech trends and demystification of IT principles. And today we'll talk about productivity in software industry, and we will try to ask on the question how we can measure productivity delivered by a team in software industry. We will see what do we mean by productivity, what is the best way to deliver it, and for existing project, how we can reach this target. And for this, today, we are with Guillaume Faas. Hi, Guillaume.
Hi, Nicolas. Long time no see.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to be your student by following your extreme TDD learning course 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm really excited to start this podcast with you. But maybe you can start by the beginning. Could you tell us who you are?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for the invitation. I'm kind of grateful that you think of me to talk about this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as you said, so my name is Guillaume. I am a .NET developer advocate. I work at Vonage currently. And I have around 15 years of experience in the software engineering space with roles like architect, tech lead, stuff like that. So I have some kind of technical baggage. And my role currently is to act as a bridge between products and developers. So I'm doing a lot of things. And as you mentioned, with a friend, hello, Johan, we did run a little workshop called Extreme TDD and other things. And so I try to create content. I try to write blog posts, and I try to raise awareness overall about practices that will help you deliver better and faster. Yeah.
Yes, a great workshop, but I hope you will have a new one maybe in 2025.
Yes. There is something in discussion.
Okay, so thanks to be with us. Maybe we can start by what do we mean by productivity? Because we want to know how we can measure the productivity. I think in software industry we have two prisms in to define the productivity. We have the first prism. It's most of them know this prism is the prism of quantity. We can measure the productivity by quantity, and by quantity I mean line of code, number of commit, pull request. But with this kind of prism, we have some a little issue. It's not me. It's a good art law that tell us that when a measure become a target, it ceases to be a good measure, and it's the problem with this prism of quantity. And additionally, a pull request at the origin was created in context of open source project, and it's really useful for asynchronous tasks. And maybe it's not really suitable in some use case for collocate team, and for team that practice or implement pair programming, mob programming, it can be useful to have pull request, but it's not what we want in to avoid the good art law. And in this podcast, we will focus on the other prism. The prism, it's maybe not so famous. It's a prism of quality in opposite to the quantity. And by quality, we mean business value.
Yeah.
So it's we need to understand what is the business value. And for this, I will share with you maybe an article for Dora Metrics. I will share my screen. Yeah. Yes. So we can see here it's the Dora website. And to understand the business value, we can see the software value stream and 4 key metrics, maybe. We can see the lead time, the deployment frequency, failure rate, and recovery time. But I did some research for this podcast, and we need to understand how we can measure this business value. I see some techniques or method in lean management. I already known OKR. It's objective key result. That it's a method that ensure that the vision of the company is aligned to the employees. But I discover some other notions like value stream mapping, value stream management, and maybe I want your thought on these techniques. Just before have your thought, Guillaume, I want just to share with you this. After we will see what is the best way to deliver this value. But here I discover also the business value scorecard, and maybe I want to know if it's a right way to estimate the business value, and maybe you know this kind of method: the business value scorecard, the value stream mapping, the value stream management, and it's a very different way than estimate from traditional metrics like pull request or line of code. So what is your thought about that?
Yeah, well, I think one good way to start is probably to explain why using quantity metrics to measure productivity is just a bad idea. Because quantity, what do we mean actually by productivity? Or what is an unproductive team?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can have different definition by this. If we leave like a team of slackers aside, I'm pretty sure it exists, but it's a minority and a different discussion. So when we talk about productivity, we talk about usually speed, pace, or the way we can deliver features to clients. So in that case, focusing on quantity is not the right way because it's kind of flawed. We had like a long time ago an assess on line of code, and that's not good, right? Because it's been proven that usually the shortened code is actually better than the bigger one. So, I mean, that's already the first thing. And then same goes for PRs, same goes for commits. It's kind of always the same stuff. When you have these kind of measurements, you don't actually measure value, you don't actually measure quality, you actually just measure quantity. So as you mentioned with good arts flow, you can actually trick all that. I've seen teams tricking code coverage, for example.
Yeah.
You know, you just write tests without assertions or test with a wide scope, and suddenly your coverage goes up and you meet the expectation, and hop, you're a good developer. You know, and it just defeats the initial purpose of the measurement.
Yes, but just for this traditional way to record some metrics, I think for our podcast listener, they already known this kind of metrics. But do you have some example for companies, or could you explain to be more understandable and not abstract for our podcast listener how we can how we can see the business value and implement this in the team?
Driving away from the quantity stuff and what is basically a problem. The idea is to then focus on quality. So what is quality for a team? The only quality that you have the team is the quality of a product and the features you can deliver to customers. Okay? So you might, for example, develop a feature entirely. And if your feature stays on your repository or, I don't know, develop branch or whatever for like a month before being in the hand of the customers, it has no value until it ends up in the end of a customer.
Even if we have a good metrics on line of code or something like that. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's not used.
Yeah.
So this is why you see so many people talking about, for example, the time to market being very important. And it's close to one of the key metric that you mentioned before, which is a lead time. So The idea is if a feature takes value only when it's in the hand of the customer, your goal is going to try to put them in the hands of the customer as fast as you can.
Yeah.
And so here comes the 4 metrics that you have there. So they do come from Dora. And if you want to dig a bit deeper, there is a book called Accelerate where they explain everything about it. So they made a wide study on the entire market. Well, not the entire market, but like a vast pool of companies. And they actually came out with those 4 metrics to actually be able to differentiate high performer to lower performer, kind of. Okay. And so you have the lead time, you have the deployment frequency, the failure rate, and the recovery time. So the lead time is just basically how long does it take for your feature, once it's finished, to end up in production in the hands of a customer. The shorter it is, the better it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is actually very interesting because now for teams and companies, you have a way to see where you stand, because they provide some kind of matrix where if it's like in less than, if it's on demand, you're a top performer, and then you have like once a couple of weeks, once a month, and then once every 6 months or once a year. And then you see where you are and you see where you can improve. So you have this one, you have the deployment frequency, basically how often can you release. Actually, no, that one was on demand. I made a mistake. And you have the failure rate. So how many pipelines and release do you have with lead to a problem, either a release problem or introducing a bug in production. Okay, and then you have the recovery time. So in case there is a problem, how long does it take for you to go back to a stable state?
But I think those metrics are really interesting. But what do we mean is that the lead time, we want that it's faster, really faster to deliver a feature in production. But it's the only goal is to have, I think, a really good feedback loop to have to see if the feature ask to a need, really ask to the need. Answer to the need of the customer.
Yeah, because that's the first thing. You don't, if you release once every 6 months, you don't need your customer feedback to know that you're doing poorly. First off, it's a technical stuff first, and this is where, if you ask me, there is not such of a productivity problem in the market. It's more a maturity problem on the technical side, because if you follow this, actually, you should be able to get such feedback. Okay, so back to value now. Let's say you are able to deliver often. My feature goes like in a day, it's in production, in the hands of a customer every single time. Now, how do you measure what you produced? You have different ways of doing that. So I think that there are 2 ways you can see actually those kind of metrics for productivity. One is customer centered, one is technically centered. So customer centered, you're going to look for customer engagement. Okay. So for example, like how many customers actually use your new feature that you built in? Are they aware of it? You're going to look about the customer satisfaction. So you're going to try to get for reviews, get feedback, see if people are happy with what you delivered, make sure that you deliver what they wanted initially.
Your answer is really useful, because it's you give us some tips to know how we can track the business value after we deliver a feature. Yeah,
that's You won't be able to get the business value if you're not able to observe your system. Okay, so you need to find a way to get that information. So, for example, if your product is a website, you're able to track where people go, what is their path inside the website, and you can see whether what they use, how often they use it, and then you need to ask also for feedback forms or You need to find to reach your customer to ask for feedback. That's mandatory. And so that's basically for what I think for the customer-centric stuff. And on the technical side, well, you have them in front of you. Those 4 metrics, they will tell you if your team delivers. That's simple because productivity. If you see things moving, if you see things delivered continuously to customers, you don't even have to ask yourself about productivity. Things go.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It's
And
not a matter.
after
It's
you track
well,
from the client if it's answer to the need. But yeah, I understand that if the technical way, thanks to the technical way, we can deliver each time production when we do something. The question will be on the customer side and not in the technical side. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the starting brick is clearly on the technical side, for sure.
So maybe just to summarize what you have told us about how we can measure the business value. I think you told us that we can track the customer satisfaction, and I have some. I share my screen. Yeah, I see that we can track the value stream, and the value stream is based on the customer satisfaction. I just want to find in the article. No, it's not this one.
Yeah, OKRs are a bit different. It's on the organization side, and just to make sure that you're focusing on the right thing and building the right thing. So it's not really on the customer side.
Okay, but for the business value, after we'll see how we can deliver, what is the best way to deliver it in production. But just to finalize with how we can estimate the business value, could you just tell us, for our podcast listener, how we can implement business value scorecard? Do you know some method or?
This is something I've never seen before.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. But looking at it, when you look at what we have under value for users, it's basically what we just talked about. The user customer engagement, customer satisfaction, as you see, pain level with the problem, enthusiasm potential. That's basically satisfaction. You have the use frequency. This is something that we have as well. And so, I mean, it just makes sense. Now, I think you can kind of customize this one for each company can make his own sauce, kind of, right? But you need to measure what matters to you, because all of those won't have the same weight for every company. So it's, kind of a ad hoc situation where you need to make sure that you measure what you want and that you can measure what you want and that you just take action upon it.
But my point is for you, if if we want to track the quality instead of the quantity, do we have the same Jira flow, for example, to create some feature? To initiate, we want to initiate the feature before pass to the technical way. How we can track that? Because our podcast listener want to know if they can track in the same way the quantity or the quality, but how they implement the development flow in this kind of way.
It's not on Jira.
Yeah, definitely.
Jira is just following a process and moving stuff around. And so when we're talking about quality, we're talking straight into the code base and a bit beyond. Okay.
Yeah.
So something that has been not put into the spotlight, but what Accelerate focuses on is continuous delivery. And this is not new. It's been there for under this name for almost 30 years. So it's not something that just came out like 2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to try to foster your cycle of releases and just to make sure that you're able to deliver faster and safer. Okay. So it contains several things. So first off, we can talk about continuous integration, which is the first brick that is essential. So there is no continuous delivery without continuous integration. Okay, so when actually, and it's something that Brian Finster mentioned like a while ago on LinkedIn, people keep talking about CI/CD, but as there is no CI without CD, we should just talk about CD, because otherwise we're just repeating ourselves. Okay, so CI is basically make sure that you can integrate your code together at least once a day. And this is something that already a lot of people I've been coaching are kind of understanding the wrong way.
But it's a really shift in the paradigm for our client, because if the client tell us, okay, we can develop this feature and in one day it will be in production, so it's really a shift in mind. So for you,
it raises a lot of questions.
We need to change the way you maybe create a task to develop. So could you explain what is the process before the delivery?
Well, you just need to have a requirement.
Just requirements. Okay, it's my thought. I want to develop this point in order to explain to our podcast listener that we develop a requirement and after it will be in production in one day.
Yeah, there is not like a single answer to this. It really depends on the scope of your application, the scope of your team, and other things. But you need a feature to implement. You need requirements in that feature. It's not just, hey, I want to have a download stuff and just do whatever you want. It's not like that. You have requirements. Okay. And the idea is to have not necessarily everything before, but you can start with an example mapping, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to
this is a pragmatic way, to implement.
But it doesn't mean that you need to have everything up front, because your feature can evolve and your requirements can come in. So this is where if you build sustainable software, you're supposed to make the change easy.
Yeah,
changing the code should be easy afterwards. Okay?
The technical excellence.
Actually having a not necessarily a partial feature, right? But something that will get better over time, will get more mature over time, is fine. Okay, so this is what you need initially, and the first requirement for doing something like this to be able to release every day is to have to rely heavily on automated testing. Okay. There are several reasons for that. First off, an automated test will be more robust than you. Okay. If you do a manual test, or if anyone actually do a manual test, it's a human interaction, and so it's prone to error. That's a fact. Okay.
You need to trust on your unit test.
You should trust. You should trust your test more than actually your colleagues for doing manual tests. The other thing is they are supposed to be deterministic. So if they work once, they should always work. Okay. So as soon as you have a green light on your testing that, hey, I'm working, they will work forever until the test change or something like that. But they will work for a long time. You
should not have flaky test or something like that. And what you describe is a acronym FIRST. Yes, the first is for fast, independent, repeatable, self-validating, and timely. Yeah,
exactly. And the last thing where you want to focus on automated tests is they scale very well. So if I want to run a test 1,000 times a day, I can. If I want to test a feature manually 1,000 times a day, I can't. I have a work to do and I have a private life and I have to sleep. And so I can't do all that. Okay. So it's basically a win on every side. So that's the first thing. You need to be able to tell whether your solution, your project is working as expected, like this. I need to have a button. I need to be able to click on it, and whether in a matter of seconds, minutes, I need to know, is it working? Is it not?
I know that you develop with TCR, so test commit revert. So
yeah, fun times.
yeah, so it should work all the time.
Yeah, actually, even if you don't do TCR, if you just do TDD, for example, it should work all the time as well.
But
because you won't move to the next step if you're stuck into a red state, for example. Okay, so no matter the form, automated testing is mandatory for a simple reason. So I mentioned like all the benefits, and not all, a few benefits for automated testing, but you can't target to release within a day. I finished my feature today and I want to release something tomorrow. You can't do that if your feature has to go in the hands of manual testers in the next sprint that will take 1 week, for example.
Yeah, it's the cycle time will be bad.
Yeah, so we're talking about potential organizational changes too. Okay, because this cannot happen. Otherwise, what's the point? If you still have,
but it's a big shift in some organization to reach this.
Is the difficult part.
But we will see maybe in part 3. But now, just to summarize the part 1, is we start with a requirement and a business value requirement, and after we need to deliver it. And now, could you tell us what is the best way to deliver it? I think we can talk about the minimum viable CI/CD. Maybe our podcast listener doesn't know.
Well, actually, we were talking about TI, so we were already in. So the website that you're talking about, for people who doesn't know, is called Minimum Viable CD, and it's a website that gathers all the information about continuous delivery, where we talk actually about. Well, I say we. I didn't participate, but I'm using this one a lot to spread the word. So we basically explain what's required there, how it works, what are the recommended practices, and it contains basically everything you need to know, or links to everything you need to know if you want to step up and do that.
But it's with this kind of tool or method, it's a way to achieve a good lead time, or to have in the end of users the feature.
Yeah, well, actually, not only the lead time, because it will also improve the other metrics. Because it's not only about releasing often and having a short lead time, it's also about having stable product and stable releases. So you should not have any surprises when you release, because you have everything that is green before. You have a thorough test suite that you can rely on and that you can trust. That's the thing. Teams that apply continuous integration or continuous delivery, they are confident about their delivery, the artifact that they're going to push to production. So when it's time to release, nobody's sweating, nobody's afraid, because you know that your artifact is already working before. So actually, you're going to have a very good lead time, but your change failure rate will be also extremely low.
But in the pragmatic way, I think for a podcast listener, it can be abstract, because maybe we need to add a new notion like feature flags, for example. If you be able to deliver a feature in 1 day in production, we need to enable it or disable it
so
quickly.
Moving to feature flags, just to finish on continuous integration, there is one thing that we missed that we must say as well. So everybody has to merge the code on the same branch at least once a day.
Yeah.
And so this raises again questions, because it means I need to push my code on main. My code needs to work because it goes on main, right? And it needs to be tested. And so how does it work for unfinished features?
Yeah.
Some features will last more than a day. So if I'm supposed to do that every single day, how do I do when my feature takes 3 weeks, for example, because it's a big one?
So just what you would describe is trunk-based development, and
yeah,
it explains the minimum viable CD also. Yeah.
yeah.
So
CI, I mean, merging your code at least once a day on trunk is what you're supposed to do, and trunk based is how you're supposed to do it. So either you work straight on trunk on your main branch, or you can make branches that are short-lived. So they should be very short-lived, maximum one a day.
one day.
Yeah, maximum a day of lifetime. And so there is no develop branch, there is no release branch, there is no hotfix branch. It's just trunk, or maybe your temporary branch that lives next to it for a day, and that's it.
So it's supposed to have a very few feature, or decoupling a feature in very few parts. So maybe you can explain how we can do this if we have a feature and you split the feature in a few parts. How we can do this?
So no, beyond even CI or CDs, trying to work in smaller chunks is always a good thing. Yeah. Now I think what something I've seen people struggle with is when splitting on smaller chunks, people think they have to deliver something that cover the entire feature, and they can't split it in smaller pieces than that. But you can actually deliver something incomplete. It's just
only if you have feature flag or something like that.
Or branch by abstraction. That's another way. You have two.
Maybe you can explain this way. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So just to summarize the problem, I'm working on a feature that is big.
Yeah.
And I need to do something. I need to I need to commit something at the end of the day. So it doesn't have to be something.
Commit, but to have it in production. Yeah.
Not necessarily. No.
Not necessary. Okay.
I need to commit at least to trunk.
Yeah, to trunk it.
Okay. I need to commit on the main branch, but I can't break it. Okay.
Yeah.
My stuff needs to be tested. It needs to compile. Test needs to pass. I can't break trunk.
For the other teammates, it will be great.
Yeah, they won't be happy. Neither your company.
Yeah. Okay, it's the end of the day. Okay, the trunk.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, in continuous integration, there is one rule, which is if your branch is red, let's say it's broken, it becomes the team's first priority.
Okay.
For fixing it. And if you can't fix it within like 10, 15 minutes, you just roll back and find another way. So I'm working on a big feature, like I need like a very complex download, whatever. And obviously I can't make something that works end to end in one day. Maybe I can't do that. So what you can do instead is try to isolate chunks of that download, even though they don't cover everything, but just don't expose your new feature to customers. So one way of doing it, for example, is what we talked about, so branch by abstraction. Yeah, this works when you want to modify or replace something that already exists.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's say you're using an adapter that calls an API to do something. Okay. Obviously, any change to this one might break existing behaviors. So what you're doing is basically hiding that adapter behind an abstraction, an interface, something like that. Okay. And you make your second implementation. and you work on that
But
implementation that you
both
can test.
implementation are available, for example, an API, or we need to switch at a time to V1 to
What do you mean?
V2.
Can
Um,
you rephrase maybe?
if you can, if you are able to have two versions of the API, for example, it will be possible to test it at the end both, or only one version are available at one
I
time.
w- yeah, I wasn't directly talking about having a pure API, for example. It could be, but I was saying inside the same code base having one adapter
Yeah.
as a port and adapter in that architecture, right? So one adapter to call another API. What you could do is hide this one behind an abstraction and make a second implementation that is not used elsewhere in the product. This way, you
Yeah.
can work on something that doesn't break the current solution, it doesn't override any existing behavior, and you can still test it.
Okay,
Because
so
in your
you
test, you can
plug
decide
the second adapter just when you are
exactly,
ready in production.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
what happened is you can work this way on your feature for 3 weeks, and when it's finished, you just swap them, run your test, and you see if it works. And if it works, you're good to go.
Yeah. So it can be easy, but it's really we need to have some requirement in your architecture. It's we need to have power and adapter architecture, for example, and what you describe is maybe one answer for a podcast listener if you want to have it in existing project and we need to switch to this kind of architecture or this kind of productivity. We need to implement power and adapter architecture, for example, to be able to switch the adapter when you want. And
Well, it's so two things I want to say about that. First off, changing an architecture while your product already exists is difficult.
yeah,
It requires a lot
when
of choice.
we not start from scratch.
So not something that easy. Now I just mentioned an adapter because it's for a lot of people will know what I'm talking about. Now, if you don't have that particular architecture and you're still like in the N tier architecture or anything else, I mean, I'm talking about an adapter. For you, it could be a service, it could be a client, an override of an HTTP client that does something.
Okay.
There are other ways. You don't necessarily have to go in that architecture to do it. Okay, I'm just talking about whether it's a class or a group of classes or a group of anything. You can just wrap everything and swap that by something else. That works.
Yes. But to have a pipeline that works, we need to have a sociable test, in
Yep.
contrary of a solitary test. I guess that to have a flexibility in your test to switch without break the pipeline or
Yeah, correct. If you have like tests that are coupled to implementation, you will
yeah,
struggle to do the swap. But this is everything we've talked about until now, and this is true as well. Um, it requires practice, it requires experience, it requires maturity. You don't. We were talking about the Dora metrics before and being like in the top performer teams. Uh, you don't become one of the top performer team just because you want to. You have to work for it. You have to work towards it. You have to learn practices. You have to apply them, and you have to, I mean, commit to quality.
yeah.
Shift left. Okay, so it's wanting is the first step. Then you have to learn and you have to practice.
But if you have an advice for client that want to switch to this way because it's more valuable for your product to track the business value instead of quantity,
Yeah.
uh, it's better to track the quality and how they can shift their architecture or their mindset to move
Um,
to this kind of metrics.
so I think we be humble on
Hmm?
your expectations. Um, don't expect every change to happen overnight. Okay. We're talking about big changes, big mindset changes too, and also big changes on your code base and everything you're doing. If you're willing to move from a state where you can release every 3 months to one day, don't try to do that in one day. Okay. You have just to take it step by step. Try to approach this more as a continuous improvement exercise. Yeah. Okay. So the goal is to, for tomorrow, do better than today. So for a team that starts from, let's say they are on the far end of the DORA metrics where it's not very bright and they want to do better and they're motivated and stuff like that. Start small, try to isolate the places where you have like low risk, high reward, where you can easily integrate first automated testing. Okay. So if we're talking about, if you're in the, if you're doing by any chance a domain-centric architecture, the first thing would be to test your domain.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where you have your business value. This is where it's very important to start. Then for trying to commit, try to strive away from pull requests and other things that will slow you down. Okay. Try to have a more sociable approach. So either with pairing or mobbing if you can. Not all the time. A little bit more every day. I don't know. And try to increase the pace of your commits to trunk also. Try to commit more often, but smaller pieces. Even if you keep pull requests, you will realize that it's much easier and faster to review like one small pull request per day rather than like one big every week.
But just for this point, can you apply this method without the business? Because like we have seen before, we need to deliver in production more often than before. So it implies that maybe it can we can have a regression more often if we have. So the business need to be aware of that. So can we apply and implement this way to go to this kind of metrics without the business? We need to have a commitment in the business side to.
You can, because what I was mainly talking about was like a very first phase where you don't increase yet the production release. You're just increasing your delivery cycle in terms of devs to the main branch, not to production. Okay. And for this, the business is not really involved. So if you take a very common scenario of a team working in a sprint of 2 weeks, right? They have a set of tickets for the sprint of 2 weeks. What you could do...
Yes, what you say is that even if the business not participate, we can improve our technical side just in order to automate, to have some automatization and deliver faster than before. But after we will have the next step with the business in order to.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for sure. But it starts as a technical problem and should be solved by the tech. You should not ask for the business to be able to really to merge faster on your branch. Okay, and that's this is where I think they come into a second phase. Because when you start with your sprint, what prevents you when one task is done to make sure that it gets merged into trunk on the same day?
Okay, so start by try in your technical side to improve all what you have seen before, and after, when the technical side is perfect, no, not perfect, but it's ready to apply the one day in delivery.
Then you have to talk to the business, because then they have to adapt to your pace. You'll be faster than them.
Yeah.
Right? Because they will see. I mean, we're talking on the long run. It's not something that will happen over one sprint, 2 sprints, 1 month, 2 months. It takes time. At some point, you will gain confidence. You will get control back over your workflow, about your code base. You will be like more confident and less stressed about them. You'll have less fear about releasing. You'll be able to release on Fridays. You'll be able to release more anytime. Okay.
Sure.
So at some point, you'll get faster than the business. They will have to follow you.
Yes, but at a point we need to tell to the business side, because the goal is to convince the business side that we are able to split a feature and we can deliver it in production less than one day.
Careful with one thing, because the way I understand what you're saying is, I have a feature that lasts for 3 weeks, let's say, bigger than a sprint because whatever reason, okay,
Yeah.
3 weeks, and I need to convince the business that I can do it in one day. It's not that. I can't release that feature entirely, feature complete in one day. I can't do that.
So
Feature will take me
you
how many
split.
times?
So you organize it by splitting to be able to deliver in one day each part, but the entire feature will be delivered at the end of the 3 weeks. Yeah.
Being able to release one feature that takes 10 days, I mean, so it means 10 chunks.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I do 10 days, one commit per day, it means 10 commits. It's not a business decision.
Yeah. But I need to highlight this to our podcast listener. Yeah.
Yeah. I am no problem with that. So the thing is, you don't need the permission from the business to do that, because your feature, even if until you do the last 10 commit, the last commit of the 10, the feature is not visible. It's not usable in production.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
not
what
released.
I want. Yeah.
Okay. So this is where, for me, the conversation, that exchange with the business doesn't need to happen.
Okay. Sure. It's more clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the business tell us that we have 3 weeks, and technically we organize it to be able to deliver a small chunk, but not the entire feature, just to be able to have a stable release each day.
Yeah.
A stable, not release, not the pipeline.
Yeah.
Pipeline.
The goal is to merge the code on trunk every single day. It doesn't mean making a release every day. Okay?
Yeah.
These are two separated things. Because what you want to have is trunk being your project being in a releasable state every day. It doesn't mean
it's this is the difference. Yeah. It's a reusable.
Releasing is a business decision. It's not me, developer, saying, hey, I'm going for a release today and then I'm out. It's not like that. Releasing is a business decision. What you do is you're telling the business, I'm in a state where I can deliver. You ask me to run a release, the stuff can be in production in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You're deferring the decision to the business. You have the capability because of all the technical stuff we talked before. Okay?
But could you precise if each feature need to have a feature flag, for example, or?
So we talked about branch by extraction before. That works for replacing, swapping something. From scratch, it might be a bit more.
Okay. When it's from scratch, sure, yeah, because it's not used before. Yeah.
There is nothing to swap from.
Yeah.
So in that case, what you might want to use is a feature flag. So it's just a feature a toggle. It can be as simple as an if statement in your code, but now you have stuff that does it very well. For example, in .NET, you have the feature management that is already embedded there. It's very easy to use. And the idea is to hide this behind that toggle. So your feature would be basically hidden. The code will be there, just completely hidden from the customer. And it's just a toggle that you can also manipulate in your test. So your test will, for example, enable the toggle to verify that your feature is working as expected, even though it's not finished, even if it's not visible from a customer point of view. Now, that's only one use of feature flagging. There are other use, because you can also do like a hot swap of a toggle. You can like toggle something in production without having to stop anything. So you can use that for different kind of releases, or If you want to have like a paywall for your features, you have several uses for feature flags. Yeah.
Yeah, but just I think we need to have a link between this technical way that we have described and the business. And even if we say that it's a business decision to release, I
Yeah.
think with this kind of technical architecture, we can deliver faster than before. And
Oh
you
yeah.
can you have an impact on the business because as you said, you can tell to the business, I'm ready to deliver before than the old way.
Yeah. You. Yeah. We're talking about a long time after you started practicing, obviously, because it will take time before saying "Well, we can release anytime we want." Um, but it does give you a lot of leverage. Because if we come back to business value, we are suddenly into a different territory than we used to be before. Because if we take the initial statement, which is we can release only once every 3 months,
Yeah.
now we can give a feature in the end of a customer as soon as it's done. I'm not saying in a day because a feature will take more than 1 day to be implemented, but done. When the feature is done, day plus 1, it can technically be in the end of a customer. And even if it's day plus 3, it's still good.
Yeah.
Even day
Okay.
plus 5. The thing is, you're in control and you can decide whether it's day plus 1, 2, 3, 5, or even if you don't want to release for a week for whatever reason. But you have a lot of leverage. And that's great for the business, that's great for the customer, and it's even better for the team, the dev team.
But could you just tell me if the key, I think, it's to be able to chunk or split the feature, but it's only a technical decision, or the business should be implied in this
I'm not
split?
talking. Yeah, I'm not talking about splitting the feature into multiple tiny features. I'm talking about splitting an implementation and being able to progress day by day. So if you take something like should cover a workflow that should cover end to end your application, like from the front going to the domain, going to an adapter, doing whatever thing on the database or an API, stuff like that. You won't be able, sometimes even with the vertical slice, you maybe won't be able to do everything in a day.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So what you say, it's just a technical decision that only the technical guy should be responsible of the split of the feature,
I'm going to
because
give you an
it's
extreme
not the
example.
feature that we split in tiny feature. It's just the work that we split in tiny work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an extreme example and you see exactly what I mean. Okay. So when you start a new feature, no
Yeah.
matter whatever you do, if you do TDD inside out or outside in, whatever your
Yeah.
preference is, it doesn't matter. You start with a test. Okay. You make it pass, you make it pretty, you commit.
Yeah.
What prevents you from committing this one straight to trunk? Nothing.
Yeah.
Your stuff works. It's maybe not used. If you start from inside out, sorry, your stuff is not used anywhere. Okay. And if you start from outside in, you just need a toggle to hide it. So you merged the trunk. You made your first chunk of the feature. You didn't
Yeah.
ask the business to do that. So you make your second test. What prevents you to do the same? So
So,
technically,
just to regroup the batch of commit, you will track in your commit you have the commit number, the ticket number, for example, to the feature in each commit. How you know, because it's in the trunk. So
I don't do that. I'm
oh, okay,
sorry. I
okay.
don't put the ticket number in the content
No, it's
details.
for I think our podcast listener want to know how you have the vision of the remaining work of the feature, for example.
That's a good question, actually.
Yeah.
Because for me, your Git log, your Git history should not be coupled to a ticket number for the simple reason that
Oh.
when you're looking at the Git history,
Yeah, but
I'm
it's a big shift for our podcast listener, maybe in the
yeah.
old way, because uh, all is related to a ticket number. So what you say, it's just you just commit,
Yeah.
and you have nothing to see the remaining
So
work.
let me ask you something. You see, you're in history and you see like ticket 1103, add new property, add name on client. What does it say to you? Nothing. Because when you're in the log history, you don't have access to the ticket nor its content. Okay.
Yeah,
So for me, no ticket there.
but do
Conventional commit.
you? I think you know the bus factor. So if you have the truck factor, I think
Lottery
you have two
factor.
names. So if you have a bus and you're not in the company tomorrow,
Uh,
how the guys can see the
so
remaining work? He just try to see the history.
so there are a couple of different possible answers for this. There is not a single absolute answer. Uh, if you work in a mob fashion, the mob
Yes.
knows.
Yeah.
If you work in a pair, your pair Perry, your colleague as a pair, knows as well.
Yes. You talk about
Now,
the collective knowledge. Yeah.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. So now, if you're working alone, you need a way to report that somewhere. So whether you're I don't know if you really want to go on the Jira board, you can have a story where you can make a task that I did this, and then you have a progress there maybe, but purely as a reporting tool, not as the business telling you what to do. You're
Yeah.
just keeping like progress somewhere. That would be my least preferred solution, but then it really depends on the scenario, the environment, whether you can pair with someone, whether you can't. Uh, it's
But
it
I
really
think
depends on the
this is
context.
a big shift. I think in company we not have the culture of sociable programming like
Mm.
mob programming, pair programming, but the main benefit is the collective knowledge and
Yeah. I mean, oh, don't get me started. I mean, collective, the sociable programming is the best way to spread knowledge through the team. And I'm talking both technical knowledge and business knowledge, because you're
yeah,
talking to someone straight away, and you multiple eyes are seeing what's going on. Now, it's not the only benefit. We talked about the lottery factor before, but it's actually even better than that. One of the best perk of doing pair programming, or even better, mob programming, is you have a live review.
yeah. And
So
it
no
increases
more
the lead
overtime.
time because we don't need to wait for
Exactly.
the review, wait for comments, right? So it really improves the lead time at the end. So
Yes, exactly. So if you want to dig deeper on that, there is a great, actually, an article and a talk done by Dragan Stepanovic, where it's called "How Async Code Reviews Are Killing Your Company
yeah,
Throughput." Okay, and so the fact that you have a live review, you don't have a proper review after it's implemented. You always have someone next to you collaborating with you and
yeah.
discussing about the change at the time you made them. So no more review after that, which means when you decide both that it's done, it's done. There's nothing else to do.
Yes,
Merge it.
it's why pull request should not be the standard, but actually for the time being it is the standard
Yeah,
many enterprise. So it
yeah.
should be not.
It's a security gateway. It's as you mentioned at the beginning of the session. It was mainly intended for open source software because you do not know the identity nor the intention of the people contributing. It
Yeah,
can be someone with malicious intent trying to hide something in your code or do something like that. So you want to have a view and an approval on something like that. And but that's for open source software where you don't know who you're working with. In a team where you see your colleagues
you
every
know
day,
each other. So
yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it? Uh, was I don't know if he wrote it, but Anthony Cyril shared a stuff like a couple of months ago where
Yeah.
he basically said that pull request in the team was like having your family for dinner and asking them to go through a security check when they get in the house. You know, which
Yeah.
is, I mean,
Maybe if
sure.
it's the uncle or
Yeah, yeah. The, the problem I see is we're using pull requests for the wrong reasons. We
yeah.
think them as a solution for a problem, and it's not the optimal one. Whether you want to spread the knowledge to someone else, it doesn't work because when you review something asynchronously, you don't have the context with it, so you're just reading. That's not great. And I mean, even for the time, even if you want to have like increased quality with pull request, you don't increase quality when the work is done. You do that while you're working on it. And as we talk about the throughput, it's just a disaster in terms of time and exchanges. How many
Yes.
times do you?
Many pull requests are in a waiting state because
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
need to wait the guy that know something or so
Yeah,
I think it's why many companies focus on the quantity because they need to implement all techniques and method that we have seen we have talked about in the podcast. But I think that we
yeah,
have past the 1 hour for the podcast.
yeah. Oh, one thing I want to say about what you just said, I think companies they focus on this quantity metrics because I think it's the only thing they know.
Yeah.
I think it's our duty, us engineers, to raise awareness on the other things and why these are not efficient. Because we see, I don't know if you saw that, but in late November, there was a study that came out saying that 10% of remote workers would actually ghost developers because they were not contributing enough compared to the others.
Okay. No.
Yeah, okay. I'll send you the link afterwards if you want
Yeah.
to link it somewhere. That's fun. So I think it's like, for example, the coverage. There is a better way to assess your test suite than coverage, a quantity metric. And you can put a quality metric in front, which is a mutation score that you know.
Yeah.
We have to tell that. You can't expect a full company to know or whatever. We have to be the first actor into raising the bar to do better.
Yeah, I think the business or manager or technical lead will be happy if they can be able to release more faster than before. But
It's a game where everyone wins. The
mm,
company, your manager, you, and the customer. There is
yeah,
no the only let's say compromise would be we have to work a lot more to get at that level, and that's sometimes difficult, and sometimes it's
yes,
difficult in the environment of the company. So it's not like super easy for everybody in every kind of scenario. It's yeah.
it's why we need to spread our knowledge to tell us that it exists. So
Yeah.
you can do it if you want. It can be difficult to implement it, but at the end, the gain, the benefit will be huge, yeah, for
My,
your
my
company.
my best advice would be just try and see if you can do better. If you can't, you can't. Just try. Or and if you don't know how to do it, seek for help. Just ask around. There are plenty of people willing to help online.
Okay, so thank you so much, Guillaume. I think we'll stop the podcast because we are past the 1 hour. So it's a really interesting subject, and I hope that some company will shift our mindset just by listen the podcast and understand that we can track the business value instead of the quantity
Mhm.
for the productivity. So thank you so much. Just I am in a continuous improvement approach. So if you have some question, suggestion, don't hesitate to leave your feedback, and we'll try to answer with Guillaume. And thank you so much. And for our podcast listener, I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.